rush, adrenaline rush now. Adrenaline rush, adrenaline rush now. Adrenaline rush, adrenaline rush now. Adrenaline rush, adrenaline rush now.
Well, I guess we should talk about Impact. 'Twas a hell of a show. 'Twas.
Pretty much. We, I actually did watch last week's show. We didn't talk about it on this show. There was no need to, but it was also good, so they're on a roll. It opened with Dixie and Sting in the ring, surrounded by most of the roster. They brought out Hogan. He's the new general manager. He said he was going to make some big changes. Talked about meetings with creative and ideas for new segments. Another crap. Started making matches for Lockdown. He booked Morgan against Crimson for that show. For tonight's show, he booked a top contenders match for the Knockouts title. Didn't really specify what was going on, just that there'd be a lot of girls involved. He called out Bischoff, but Ric Flair, who was at ringside, said Bischoff wasn't there. At this point, Bobby Roode interrupted and came out on stage. Warned Hogan that Dixie and Sting had tried to control him, and it turned out badly for them. So Hogan booked Roode against Mr. Anderson for tonight. And then he also booked Kurt Angle against Jeff Hardy for right now. A lot happened here. The good news is it did not go 20 minutes of boredom. The bad news is it was too much in too short a time, but it could have been worse.
I have a few questions. Number one, and I know the answer to this, but it's still a rhetorical question. Why is Dixie so happy to be giving the company back to the guy that spent all that time trying to steal the company from her?
Don't know.
I realize the storyline is it's the new Hulk Hogan, but really? Clearly she's never watched wrestling. And my other question is, when Hogan was calling out Eric Bischoff here, I had the question I've had for a long, long time now that I'm still begging to have answered. What is Eric Bischoff's role in TNA?
That actually is a tremendous question here. I vaguely recall he had some kind of deal with Sting where his money was guaranteed, so Sting was not going to do this, give him the satisfaction of firing him.
Money for what? What does he do in this company?
I don't know.
I don't get it.
The contract he signed when they were in charge basically guaranteed him a position on the show.
So he's just, he makes his money to just be Eric Bischoff?
Yes.
Guess could be worse.
Which, frankly, is pretty much true anyway.
I guess so. Oh, all right. Well, move on.
All right. So we had Jeff Hardy versus Kurt Angle.
Great match.
I thought this was much better than the pay-per-view match.
I have come to the conclusion that Kurt Angle has given up on his Olympic dream. And I'll tell you why. I know that Dave and I had a lot of disagreements about Kurt Angle, about whether he was actually going to show up at the Olympic trials. For a lot of different reasons, I was firmly convinced that this guy was going to at least show up at the trials. Of course, a couple days ago, he announced he'd torn his hamstring. Of course, he then taped it all up and worked this match. I've seen a lot of Kurt Angle matches over the last several months. He's slow. His body is just... He looks like a 43-year-old man, which he never looked like before. I don't want to say he half-asses it, but on the scale of any other human in the world, he half-asses it. But for Kurt Angle, that's still, he doesn't
Several asses worth of work.
He doesn't know how to half-ass it.
Yes.
But he half-asses it as much as Kurt Angle's going to half-ass anything. Then I watch this match, and it's like, he's already starting to look a little different. He's moving better with a torn hamstring. And he went all out, and he had a hell of a match with this guy. He worked his ass off. And so I just concluded, well, guy knows he ain't doing the trials. That was my conclusion. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's going to show up. But I just felt watching this match that he's resigned himself to the fact that he ain't going. And let's just say the old Kurt Angle's coming back.
Yes, he had his hamstring taped up here. He also took a bump on the floor and banged his head hard into the back of the guardrail.
Busted himself open.
He was busted open so badly that this cut on the back of his head trickled down into his face. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of blood. So, they had time. They went all out. Like I say, I thought this was better than the pay-per-view match until the finish. Jeff was going through his comeback. He went for the twist of fate, And Angle slipped out, and he left the ring, and he walked to the back and took the count out. As soon as he got backstage...
Well, at least they did something intelligent to set up a cage match.
Oh, I agree. And in fact, as he walked through the curtain, Hogan was waiting for him and booked him in the cage match for the pay-per-view. And Kurt freaked out.
Yeah, it was a hell of a match by Kurt Angle there.
It was just fun stuff. Flair called Eric Bischoff, told him it was an emergency, he needed to get his ass down there. Bully Ray cut a promo backstage. Basically, he vowed to take care of Mr. Anderson at the pay-per-view in Austin Aries tonight. And then after commercial, he was in the ring talking more. He was burying Aries for being small. Aries finally came down, beat him up for a while. He was hitting mounted punches in the corner when Ray cut him off with a giant powerbomb. They showed many angles of this. It looked like it sucked without being dangerous.
Well, it kind of looked like he landed a little in the back of his head, but who knows? Maybe he was just doing a great job selling.
We then had the best part of Impact, best part of every Impact, Joe Park Esquire.
Awesome.
He was in catering, talking to the catering guy, setting up the equipment. Food was not prepared yet. Food wouldn't be ready for 30 minutes. And Joe Park explained that his brother Chris liked to eat.
Probably spent many hours here in this.
Probably in catering often.
Yes.
The guy who was working there said he was new. He didn't know what Joe was talking about. So Joe gave him his card, asked him to give him a call if he heard anything about Abyss. He turned away, then turned back and said, "And 30 minutes for the food, right?" And the guy said yes. And Joe smiled and walked away.
Joe Park,
no doubt, in 30 minutes.
Has to be experienced used car salesman. He's way too good at this role.
All I know is I do not remember the last character this entertaining.
He's awesome.
Joe Park Esquire is phenomenal.
He is awesome at being Joe Park Esquire.
Yes.
Shouldn't be too difficult, I guess.
AJ was cutting a promo predicting that Storm would beat Rude when Storm interrupted. He explained that Hogan was putting him in a match tonight and letting him choose his own opponent. And he wanted to wrestle AJ to prepare himself for Rude. AJ said, "Are you sure? I'm a lot quicker than him." And Storm said, "Yeah, I know. And if I can hit you with a super kick, then I can damn sure hit Rude." He had the knockouts.
That was an awkward exchange, by the way.
It was not the best. It was one of those where they tried to act like friends, and you didn't actually believe these two men were friends in real life. We had the Knockouts Top Contender match. Basically, it was a six-way with 2 girls in the ring and 4 in the apron. You could tag in and out. And even though it was one fall to a finish, so you'd think you'd want to be in the ring unless it was absolutely desperate you leave, girls were just tagging out randomly all the time.
Yeah.
The action was very good. And it ended with a parade of finishers and finally Velvet pin Mickey with a pedigree. So it's Gail versus Velvet a lockdown. And then they also, worth noting, they had one babyface pin another in the finish. So we'll see if that goes anywhere. Anderson was cutting a promo backstage. Rude interrupted. It got very annoying very quickly. Like most Anderson segments.
Anderson looked 1,000 years old, this poor guy. I feel bad for Mr. Anderson these days.
Had some rough times. They showed clips of Jeff Hardy and James Storm at the Country Music Awards, posing for pictures with Kiss. And James Storm, he had prettier hair than all the women there.
Which he may have.
It's nice hair.
Can't argue.
It was time for Eric Young's bachelor party. It was him and some nerds, no wrestlers, he pointed out, and some non-alcoholic beverages and candy. They were doing a fantasy baseball draft. Then ODB showed up. She had beer and chicken wings. She kicked the nerds out. She told Eric that every day of their marriage would be like a bachelor party and rubbed his face in her boobs. He seemed to enjoy this.
That was, in fact, I would argue, better than my own bachelor party.
It's a tough call.
I had the part about all the nerds, but I didn't have my face in any boobs.
Or chicken wings, actually.
Or chicken wings. There was beer, but I hate beer. So that's a wash.
You make a strong point. This one had baseball, though, Brian.
Oh, you're right. Mine was better. Mine had Brent. Still better.
James Storm versus AJ Styles in the funnest match I've seen, on the show. It's been a good week. But they had an absolute... For what they did, the work they did was absolutely pay-per-view quality. Basically, they had the first 1/3 of an awesome wrestling match. They went back and forth, traded a bunch of holds, countered a bunch of stuff, and then AJ made one mistake, and Storm caught him with a super kick and immediately pinned him.
I thought this match was great.
Yeah.
I thought this was a fabulous little television match.
Mm-hmm.
AJ looked awesome. Made Storm look awesome. I've had a lot of people tell me James Storm is not the easiest guy to have a good match with.
Yeah.
But you never know that watching this match. He looked great.
AJ is...
Very good? Yes.
Yeah.
A fact.
He just really is. And the fact that he's just kind of there in TNA is kind of sad, really. So, Storm made sure AJ was recovered after being kicked in the mouth. And AJ got up slowly, held his jaw. He raised Storm's hand and he bailed. And Storm cut a promo on Rude. And really, this was a perfect segment. Hogan and Sting had a meeting. Basically, Hulk told him to go home and get healthy. Storm met with Montgomery Gentry backstage. He said they'd go party after he showered. He disappeared. And then Rude arrived, and he harassed the countrymen and spat water in their face.
Montgomery Gentry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's very important.
I'm sure it is. I have nothing to add to this segment.
Mexican America versus the Motor City Machine Guns. They showed Saban blowing out his knee against the same team a year ago, but they really didn't make a big deal out of his return at all. They just played the Guns music, and Shelley walked out, and he pointed to the back, and Saban just walked out, and that was just it. So, he didn't do anything crazy here. Hit one tope, but he does that all the time. And he hit all his key spots, and the Guns made their comeback. They hit their Skull and Bones finish, and Saban said they want their titles back. It was fine.
I'd never actually seen the footage of him blowing his knee out. That looked like it sucked.
Well, yes.
He went for a high cross on Anarchy, and his leg just went the wrong way.
Yeah.
Out of action for a full year.
Yeah. So he's back now. That's much better.
They look good. He did look like he tweaked his knee a little at a spot at the end, but appeared to be fine afterwards, so hopefully everything is all right.
I don't know if he tweaked or if he's just tentative. He was out for a year. Bischoff arrived at the building. Flair alerted him that Hogan was out of control. Bischoff could not believe that Hogan was telling Flair what to do. Quote, "Doesn't he know you're a two-time Hall of Famer?"
As we said, they were celebrating the fact that Ric Flair went into the WWE Hall of Fame on Saturday.
Yeah.
And in fact, throughout this entire show, Flair was sporting both of his rings.
Uh-huh. He threw this out there very casually, assuming everyone knew, and I'm sure they did, but still, assuming everyone knew that the World Wrestling Entertainment had put Ric Flair in their Hall of Fame again recently.
Yeah.
So Hogan called Bischoff out. Bischoff said Hogan wasn't a leader. He was an opportunist who tagged along with whatever made things easiest for him. History was on Eric's side in this argument. Mm-hmm. So Hogan announced they were going to do Team Eric versus Team Garrett at Lockdown. I don't think he said this, but the announcers later said this would be the Lethal Lockdown match. So, yes, Team Eric versus Team Garrett. The losing Bischoff is fired from Impact. And further, if Eric's team lost, he was no longer allowed to use the Eric Bischoff name, including at autograph signings and indie shows.
That flabbergasted me. I mean, I assumed the entire time Bischoff's got some new shows in the tank, including that new one for Nick at Night. So I just presume he's going to be unavailable for a while, so they're writing him out of storylines. But then you add the thing about how he's not allowed, and I guess I shouldn't be, presuming that they're going to stick by stipulation or anything like that, but it is called Bischoff Hervey Productions, his production company, to do all of these outside endeavors. And he's actually built a name, I don't know what kind of name, but he's built a name in Eric Bischoff. And I'm reading way too much into this. But what a weird stip. You can't be Eric Bischoff anymore. Now you have to be Frank George.
I can't tell you how many times over the years I've seen Eric Bischoff's name with indie shows.
Well, I'm just saying he just said anywhere. He threw out indie shows and autograph signings, but basically said anywhere.
That's true.
So Bischoff Hervey Productions will now have to be Johnson Hervey Productions or something. Let me come up with a list of new names for Eric Bischoff. By Googling terrible baby names. All right. Let's see what we got here. Badbabynames.blogspot.com. Let's see here. Jasper. That's a bad one. Jasper Bischoff. I don't want to read all these names because they're actually listing real people's names. All right, go on, Vinny. I'll look around here.
We got a James Storm segment with himself and members of his family, his wife, his brother, I think his cousin was in there. And they were all talking about the Bobby Roode's betrayal when he broke up beer money and broke a bottle over Storm's head. And Storm said this is going to happen in Nashville. This was his town. These were his people, and he wasn't going to let them down. And honestly, if the show had ended right there, would have been much better. I guess this last segment was not terrible, but it was not good. Main event, Bobby Roode versus Mr. Anderson. It only went like 4 minutes. Anderson got blown up. Then there was a ref bump, and Mr. Anderson got a visual pin on Bobby Roode. Yeah. So
I don't know what that was all about.
I don't either.
That was remarkably dumb.
Yeah. So then Roode rolled outside. He grabbed a beer bottle, broke it over Anderson's head, and pinned him. I don't know if this is a real bottle or what, but Anderson ended up bleeding a lot. And then Storm and Hogan came out. Roode fled. Hulk reversed the decision as if anyone should care, and then the show just ended.
Yeah, he hit him with a glass bottle, which apparently was legit because Anderson was immediately bleeding. So unless he gigged before he was hit, he got his head busted open by glass. So he goes down. He's in a pool of his own blood. And then Hogan comes out and goes, "Oh, Mr. Anderson's now the winner." And I'm like, wow. What does he get out of this? He's still bloody. He's still down in a heap. He still he's still got hit in the frontal lobe with a glass bottle. I didn't get this at all. The match wasn't terrible till the stupid finish and the visual pin. But, I just watched WrestleMania. You can hit a guy with a fake glass bottle. That is possible. Mm-hmm. Outside the ring so that, there's not glass everywhere on the canvas when the referee drops down to count the pin. What did the ref think? Like someone had planted seeds of glass and they just grew in the middle of the canvas? What was he thinking here?
Well, it worked.
I guess so. Yeah, reverse the decision. Oh, my. Other than that, great show. Some good wrestling on this show. But that was head-scratching. Babble here. Actually, this is on a site called Jezebel.com. Presenting the 50 ugliest baby names. These are names that lifted from Twitter's trending hashtag ugly baby names. Babel rounded them up, arranged them alphabetically, and now we present you with a nice list of first names that could get your kid beat up at recess. So these are perfect for Eric Bischoff. We've got Nigel on the list. Poor Nigel. Gus. I'm thinking all of them with a wrestling tie-in.
Yeah.
Let's see. Edward, as in Edward Laredo. Gene, the Andersons. What else have we got here? Alan, AJ Styles. Bertha.
Faye.
Oh, that's obvious.
Yeah.
Beverly, the Beverly Brothers. A name I've never, honest to God, seen before in my entire life, but apparently it exists. Dorcas.
What?
Dorcas.
I've been called that, actually, but I don't think there was a case of mistaken identity. I thought it was just a unique subsection of the dork community.
Everybody listening to this right now, please, for the love of God, do not name your child Dorcas. You can name your child Beverly or Nigel or Alan or Bertha or any of the names on this list, but avoid Dorcas. Uvula?
That's a body part.
Uvula?
Uvula. That is a terrible baby name.
That can't possibly be the actual... You're not thinking vulva, are you?
No, that is something else.
Did I just say that here on the air?
How?
Yeah, it is. That's
You're a grown man. You are legally betrothed. How can you get those two confused?
Well, I didn't get them confused. I was just unaware of the uvula, which I guess is the that thing there in the back of the throat.
Yeah, that's correct, Brian. That's what a uvula is.
Oh, fuck off, Vinny. How am I supposed to know what a uvula is? I've never got it pierced. Yes, that's what people do nowadays. They pierce their uvula.
Well, that's terrifying.
There's a picture of it right here. It's horrifying.
All I know is in the film Monster House, there's a great joke about how someone does not know what a uvula is, and they're in 4th grade.
Well, maybe I've never seen that movie. Which, guaranteed I have not.
It's a pretty good movie.
Myrtle. A lot of these names are not really horrible. Really, is Sally that horrible? Or Cheryl?
No.
People hate the name Edward. 5 guesses why. Twilight.
Oh, yeah. I thought they know Ed.
Let's see here. All right, that's enough. I can't wait to see what Eric Bischoff changes his name to. Uvula Bischoff. Bet he could get some work with that one, actually.
Let's end the show.
To the back! Let's get going here.
Should we talk about the Impact that preceded the show? It seems like kind of a waste now.
I don't want to talk about Impact.
Impact
Before we... Actually, I thought Impact was a great show.
Impact was awesome.
But I did talk about it a lot with Dave. And
it is set up this crap.
It is out of date.
It's been rendered irrelevant by its own company.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of two things? What did you think of the wedding, and what did you think of the main event segment?
I thought the wedding... I bet most people hated that. I don't know this. I haven't actually read any feedback or anything. I suspect most people hated the wedding. I thought it was I thought it was kind of sweet. I didn't think it was great. I've seen much, much, much worse. That's for sure. And I thought the main event segment was the best promo as far as two guys talking about how much they hate each other and they're going to fight and making me care. Literally the best promo like that I've seen in years. People talk about the Punk promo from last year for good reason, but that was more about what he was going to do to the title and almost nothing to do about what he was going to do to John Cena. This was two guys saying, I am going to whip your fucking ass over and over again. And your window's open, so I had to lower my volume.
Yes.
But yes. Just
and boy, what you got out of it.
And what I got was this pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. A letdown.
I was unoffended by the wedding, is the best place to put it, or the best way to put it. I thought it was fine. Upon further reflection, I must give a thumbs up to the fact that for once we saw a wedding where two people went in there, somebody tried to interfere, they failed, the marriage was, perhaps, I was going to say consummated was the wrong word, but there was some humping involved at the end.
They were on their way.
So they pulled it off. Although I will say that the follow-up of them having a match on this pay-per-view with Rosita and Sarita in front of a dead crowd, that wasn't much of a honeymoon.
No. That is true.
Yeah. My honeymoon will be better. So.
Eventually.
Yeah, in next February.
Really?
That's the plan.
All right.
Yeah. Only 2 years after we got married. Let's talk about them Ducks.
All right.
All right, let's talk about this damn pay-per-view.
Pay-per-view opened.
Yes, we must.
James Storm cutting a promo from his pickup truck. Talked about how it was the biggest match of his career, and then he got in to start it, and for just the slightest second of hesitation, the truck struggled to turn over. Then it did, and he drove away. It would have been so awesome if he had just been starting his truck for 3 hours. I was
wondering at the end if it was better or worse, the finish they did, than if his car didn't start, he just never made it.
Never made it to the building?
Yeah. Because at least it would have been a mechanical failure as opposed to
not his
own failure.
Yes. Team Garrett was having a strategy session before the lockdown match, arguing about who should start. And Garrett, even though he's the captain, he requested that he be allowed to start. He wanted to prove he had what it took and blah, blah, blah. And it was actually hysterical because all of the other guys at some point tried to cut him off and say, yes. Anderson said this. AJ said, okay, say no more, which is his exact words. Say no more. Stop talking, you idiot. And he just kept going on and on and on and on and on. So he started the match. And it was the opener, in fact. Team Garrett versus Team Eric in a very, very, very boring Lethal Lockdown match. We've been over this rant, well, every time TNA has done one of these, I think. But suffice to say that the heels would have the advantage. A babyface would come in and run wild, and they would cut him off. So they won a fair fight every time. And then when an extra heel came in the ring, there was no momentum change because the heel was already winning. This repeated every single time throughout the match. Mm-hmm. It was quite lame and frustrating. because it should not be hard to do these. I have seen this match done well with wrestlers much worse than the guys in this match. So I don't know what it is about TNA that makes guys unable to do this. So RVD was the last guy in. To be fair, it made sense that the heels were already winning when Eric Bischoff ran in. We didn't have to watch Eric Bischoff running wild. That would have sucked. But they tortured Garrett for a while. Then RVD came in. He made his comeback. At this point, there were 10 men in one ring. It was impossible not to land on anyone. They brought the weapons down. Everyone hit each other with stuff. Everyone was still in each other's way. Everyone stopped moving so AJ and Kazarian could do a monkey bar spot. They had a habit repeatedly of two guys who were setting up a spot.
By the way, I just want to throw something in there.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who's been a gymnast, and I've been on a lot of monkey bars in my life, is it really that hard to swing on the monkey bars? Have people ever watched monkeys, like real-life monkeys, swing on monkey bars? I am baffled. Every time these idiots go to climb across the monkey bars in a cage, they do like half a pull-up, and then with their arms bent, they start trying to climb. And they do this, and they have an intense amount of trouble, and then they inevitably lose their grip and they fall. Which obviously, part of that is obviously, you know, that's the spot. But if you're gonna swing on ropes, or if you're gonna swing from the monkey bars, keep your goddamn arms straight, and then you can swing all day long. Why would you do a half a pull-up and then try to climb?
You'd have to ask Kazarian and AJ.
What a bunch of idiots. So anyway, they were having an incredibly difficult time doing this because, as mentioned, they were half doing a pull-up the entire fucking time.
Should I close that window, by the way?
No.
All right. So, yes, the director here, who was the TNA director, raising his ugly head again. There would be guys sitting up a spot in the middle of the ring, and he would not show the spot to show a close-up of a guy laying on the mat over and over again. So, eventually, Eric and Garrett were the only guys doing stuff. Eric grabbed a stick. He hit his son with a stick repeatedly. There were welts all over his back. So then Eric just stood there in the middle of the ring with 9 men laying around him doing nothing, at which point I shouted, "So pin someone, asshole." And then somehow Garrett got his hands on the guitar. He hit Eric with it one time. He pinned his father. Thank God it was done. This company can never get War Games right. This match sucked.
And they reiterated that Eric Bischoff can no longer be Eric Bischoff.
Yeah. Including apparently at, what did Hogan say?
Bischoff Hervey Productions is now no more.
He said you can't, even selling baseball cards at a
swap meet.
Swap meet, that was what he said.
That's right.
They showed a large microphone outside the building.
And they didn't really give any specifications to what that means. Like, can he be Derek Bischoff? Can he be Derek Pischoff?
How about Mr. Bischoff?
Yeah, how about Eazy-E? Is that okay?
Good point.
What are they going to do about IMDb is my main question.
Not mine.
Or is Wikipedia? Are they going to have to change it to Eazy-E? Redirects from Eric Bischoff.
Why don't you look that up and see what it says?
Right now?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
They showed a large microphone outside the building, to which Taz replied, quote, "There's a big microphone right there."
He's going to have a problem with his official website as well, ericbischoff.com. And his Twitter. Oh, this poor bastard.
We had no idea the stakes of this match were so high.
Really, honest to God, I didn't.
Samoa Joe and Magnus versus the Motor City Machine Guns.
Oh, I figured it out, by the way. It says here on May 5th, Eric Bischoff has announced, in parentheses, via Twitter, that he was starting a brewing company in his hometown. Their first beverage, called Buffalo Bill Cody Beer, has the phrase, "the spirit of the Wild West" attached to it. So I presume he's changing his name to Buffalo Bill Cody.
That cannot possibly be the first beer with that name. There's no way that name cannot not be taken. We had Samoa Joe and Magnus versus the Motor City Machine Guns. The highlight here was actually your new idea for Joe and Magnus' team name. When you point out Joe and Magnus, they should be Jam.
Yeah.
That was the best part of this.
Jam.
Yeah.
Because Joe eats a lot of it.
Yeah. So, Magnus was in there trying to keep up with the guns, struggling. He got the heat when he did a SOS. He SOS'd Shelley into Sabin, and in the process, he dropped Shelley right into Sabin's bad knee. There was no heat for this match. And I mean no heat for this match. To the point where when they made the hot tag, I did not realize a hot tag had been made. I looked up and suddenly Alex Shelley was in the ring doing moves. There was exactly one buffoon, that's what I call him here in my notes, a buffoon, chanting Motor City.
Oh my God. I'm reading more about... go ahead and finish that, then I got to tell you more.
Sabin managed to powerbomb Joe in a spot where he actually had to carry the fat man across the ring. And then eventually, Joe just dropped the guns on top of each other, and the champions hit their finisher and won. A definitive win here for the champions. A bad match, but better than Lockdown.
First off, under signature moves, it merely reads, various Taekwondo kicks and punches. I should also note that, according to this Wikipedia, you know how he spells Garrett with one R? G-A-R-E-T-T?
We discussed, yes, it's a name no one can spell.
According to this Wikipedia, his daughter is named Montana with 2 N's. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. All right, move on.
All right.
I don't like to judge. I'm sure she's a lovely young lass, but 2
Her
N's...
parents gave her a dumb name.
They did.
Robbie E. cut a promo on Devon, said he would win. Then Robbie E. wrestled Devon. As you noted, Devon has not been on TV since winning the TV title. I don't know why the fans bothered to come to this show. There were people there. You could see them. They made no noise. And had a discussion with Jubbs on Facebook. I had a lot of discussions with people throughout this show because it was so boring. But Jubbs was actually in the movie theater watching the show.
That's impossible.
Yeah. Where he relayed a picture with no action on the screen and the graphic on the bottom reading like failure to connect or something, or connection error. So that was the theater experience. And people were trying to figure out why the crowd was so quiet. They thought it was mic'd poorly. Later in the show, we could hear the crowd. So in the early part of the show, when they were making no noise, that's because they were not, in fact, actually making noise. So Robbie and Devon had a 3-minute match. It was completely average. Devon won with a spine buster. Best thing on the show so far.
Montana Bischoff, well, I shouldn't.
And how old is the young lady?
Well, I'm just going to say now everyone's going to look for her Facebook, but I can confirm that she does spell her name with 2 N's. So there you go, everybody. Is she going to have to change her name too? Probably not. Just Eric. Maybe Eric, I just figured it out. His name is going to be Eric Bischoff, but it's going to have 3 F's and 2 R's.
That's very 90s.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Borash read a tweet from a man named Sal Assworth.
That's what he said. We actually rewound that to confirm that the man's name was Sal Assworth.
Yes.
It was.
Then Matt Morgan explained he was wrestling Crimson tonight for revenge. We know. He said the cage was a prison cell. He was going to make Crimson his bitch. That was distressing. Gail Kim and Velvet Sky.
This match was bad.
This was the worst thing on the show. I know that's hard to believe.
There's not much to say.
We have seen worse from Velvet.
Velvet Sky
This is not Velvet at her worst.
No good. And Gail Kim did her best, and they had a poor match,
yes.
And Gail won.
All I know is I watched Velvet run, and she's taking 5 steps, not even to hit the ropes, just to hit a shoulder block. Mm-hmm. When she runs, she may as well be moving backwards. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous.
I can't stop looking at the fact that every time she is hit with a move, she swoons.
She does.
Like a 1920s black and white flick. Her arms flail out and she just swoons.
Like Fay Ray when King Kong grabbed her.
She would have been laughed out of a Fay Ray casting. She's so overdramatic.
There's also the point here where Velvet was in charge, and even though it's a cage match, she stopped to yell at Madison, and this caused her to lose, which is the first of many occasions in the show where babyfaces were dumb.
That was very stupid of her.
So, at this point, out came Ric Flair. He cut a promo. He called somebody fat boy. Said somebody else had no teeth. He claimed his life got greater and bigger every day. This is a lie. A blatant lie. He ran down Hogan for a while. He looked 180 years old. Hogan came out, talked about how great Flair was. Flair demanded he get in the ring. Hulk said, okay, now I'm here. This was 2 men with nowhere to go, no idea how to get there, just killing time. And to put this on pay-per-view was kind of insulting. With that said, it was the best thing on the show to this point.
Yeah.
It ended with Hulk, I guess, challenging Flair to a fight. So Flair went to take his jacket off. Hogan punched him in the face, and he then put his thumb to his nose and wiggled his fingers in the universal sign for neener neener. Mm-hmm. I swear that happened.
Yep.
This did nothing. We had Crimson versus Matt Morgan.
This also sucked.
This was slightly better than the Gail Kim match. 1 minute in, Matt Morgan had a chance to walk out the door, win the match, and end Crimson's undefeated streak. He went back into the cage. A stupid babyface. Had a match. I wrote in my notes here, better than you'd think. I don't know what the hell I was thinking with there. This match was very, 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 very boring. Matt Morgan did do one of the better jobs of firing up the dead crowd. And then he got his leg caught in the ropes, and Crimson looked at him for a while, and slowly and calmly climbed out of the cage and won. Mm-hmm. Very anticlimactic.
Very.
We got a Jeff Hardy, Kurt Angle.
That was a recreation of the Shawn Michaels Razor Ramon ladder match at WrestleMania 10. Think about that.
That was better.
You don't say.
It was.
Wow.
Yeah. That's just
I'll have to go back and watch it to confirm.
That is just one man's opinion.
That's
to
true.
be fair.
It is subjective.
It is. Had a video package for Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy. Angle's dialogue in this package was better than anything he has said in the months leading up to this match. He explained factually and calmly, "I'm not jealous of Jeff Hardy. I just hate him. He's an idiot. He looks more like a woman than a man."
That's what he said.
That's what he said. So we have the match, Jeff Hardy versus Kurt Angle. Angle, having dropped out of the Olympic trials, is magically gaining muscle mass. He's also put his name on his singlet in the style of the Olympic rings. Mm-hmm. Just a giant middle finger. So Jeff went headfirst into the cage, came up bleeding, looked like it sucked. At this point, as you noted, Brian, Angle performed what you dubbed a curtsy.
He did. He did a curtsy.
He did a curtsy.
Yeah.
So
I think he should have been using this 10 years ago.
Not too late. So Jeff was down for a long time, and I thought he might actually really be hurt. He got up and started going through his comeback and looked totally fine. So he went up top for something, but Angle ran up behind him and hit a super angle slam. It became every Kurt Angle match with ankle locks and reversals and near falls, and it was a good version of this, unlike the last pay-per-view match, which everyone liked more than me. But it led to Hardy did a senton, and then rather than make a cover, he rolled through to the opposite corner and hit another senton. That would have been a great finish, but Kurt kicked out. And so Jeff, next time he had a chance, he went up top, went to the top of the cage, which was enormous, by the way, a legit 12 feet or more, and he hit a super senton off the top of the cage. That was the finish. This was, in fact, the best match on the show, and Kurt had to be helped to the back, and the referees were indicating that his ribs were hurt due to another man falling on him from 12 feet.
That might be accurate.
That would hurt.
Mm-hmm. That's a good match.
It was a
very good match.
I went 3.5 stars.
I think it was a little better than that, and I was happy that they had promised someone was going to do something really stupid, and thankfully the stupidest thing they did was the senton off the cage, which was stupid, but in the grand scheme of stupidity, that was low on the Jeff Hardy Kurt Angle scale.
That is a good point.
So I'm glad they did something that was not too outrageously stupid, although Jeff Hardy is going to be regretting that for the rest of his life, I'm sure, in some way. Although, I don't know, he's done significantly worse significantly more times. I would never do a senton off the cage. I don't recommend it, but at least that's all they did. That's all I'll say.
We had our random women's tag filler match. Eric Young and ODB versus Rosita and Sarita.
Honeymoon match.
This was the honeymoon. So, Eric still can't wrestle the girls. So they had ODB start. She ran wild on both of the Mexicans, who are not Mexican. Eric did his comedy stuff in the corner that distracted everyone. This let the heels cut off ODB. They worked her over. Then they started to flirt with Eric. ODB grabbed her flask. She made her come back. And then she pinned Rosita. 1 star. I gave it way too much time.
Yeah, I sure did.
Mike Tenay and Taz had a conversation that lasted about 90 minutes. I don't know what the fuck they were talking about. They were on TV forever. Borash interviewed Rude. As he's cutting his promo, you could hear one fan sitting behind Taz chanting ECW and human suplex. This one fan, this may have been the same buffoon chanting Motor City earlier.
They could have just turned down Taz's mic during Bobby Roode's promo
during
backstage.
The fan actually did go quiet, and I figure there's one of two possibilities. Either they turned down Taz's mic, or Taz just killed him.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for the latter, although now that I think about it, Taz, that would indicate that Taz was more than half-hearted doing this tonight. This is not Taz's best performance. So we had the main event, James Storm versus Bobby Roode.
That hell of a match.
They did have a hell of a match. As we noted, this was a rough crowd. This crowd was really into two things all night long. They were into Angle versus Hardy, and to a lesser degree, they were into Storm versus Roode. They started off brawling on the floor, which makes sense. This crowd had been watching cage matches at this point for nearly 3 hours. So just 5 minutes on the floor is a change of pace. Storm ended up bleeding before they even got in the cage. Roode worked him over for a long time. Storm made his comeback. Roode ended up bleeding actually a lot. Roode a couple of times teased going out. Storm brought him back in. And then Storm's firing up. Storm also had a chance to escape and turned it down. For the third time on the show, we had a stupid babyface. This is the most egregious example because it's the main event. So he's going through his comeback. He hits all his big moves. He managed to jump off the top rope and hit a code breaker, which defies the laws of physics, but it still looks cool. Mm-hmm. Then he went to hit a super kick. Roode pulled the ref in the way, and the air came out of the crowd. Another ref bump, and another TNA main event. Another TNA pay-per-view main event. So the door got opened up, and Roode demanded the new ref bring him a beer bottle. The ref complied. Then Roode hit Storm, and they did a near fall off that.
Wasn't even any drama. It wasn't like, he swung and he missed, and the beer bottle ended up on the ground, and they did a spot, and then all of a sudden he hits it out of nowhere. Nope, he just walked in and went bonk, and down Storm fell.
Yeah.
Very anticlimactic.
And then he just kicked out.
Yep.
So he fired up, he hit a super kick, but he was too tired to make a cover, and he hit a second one, and he super kicked Roode right out the open door. Roode fell to the earth, dead, the victor. And I think this is why the crowd had been quiet all night. They knew this was going to happen. And then Storm just went over and hugged his family, and the show ended.
After which, there were loud, thunderous chants of bullshit!
Yeah.
Echoing throughout the empty arena. Yep.
Probably the most heat they had all night, I bet.
But hey! Maybe they'll do something with it.
I have no faith, and I don't really care.
Yeah. It's too bad. It's too bad. There was a day where you'd actually blow things off on blow-off shows, and that got people wanting to buy the blow-off shows to see the blow-off. Now they don't give the blow-off at the blow-off show.
And then people got the blow-off of the blow-off show, and they said, that was happy. The next time they promote a blow-off show, I'm going to buy that one too.
No. Antiquated thinking, Vinny.
The world has passed me by.
The wrestling business is fucked.
I'm just going to quote from our own board, the most negative place on the internet. Must have run all day says, TNA would have had Andre beat Hogan by countout at WrestleMania 3.
It probably would have.
That is funny.
Probably would have. Ronnie, would you like to... to the back! Have any new ones? Oh, that's depressing. Maybe he'll send that in again. Let's just do Impact.
All right. Impact opened. This was open fight night. And also gut check, as we later learned. It opened with Hulk Hogan having a wacky meeting. He had all the champs there. He explained to them that it was open fight night, so any one of them might get called out. Then, he immediately said he was going to book one of them in a title match. Contradicting himself. So,
continue.
He picked he picked Joe and Magnus, who he called, and this is a direct quote, the greatest team of all time.
At which point, Joe began to laugh.
Yes. He decided they would defend their belts tonight, and he was going to pick a team, and he started listing off possible challengers. Some of them appeared to have been chosen at random out of a hat, and he said he would pick one of these teams later, and he wouldn't tell them who it was. This segment sucked.
This was a really bad segment.
There was worse to come.
If I don't know. I don't want to bury open fight night too much, because at least they're trying something different, and at least there's an idea there, and at least it's not like a preposterous, stupid idea. but the idea is clearly a little too complicated, because Hulk Hogan has tried to explain this twice now, and both times he seems to have absolutely no idea what's going on. And if he does, he's done a hideous job explaining it to the viewing audience. So that is a fail.
All right. So Devon comes out. Says that he's going to defend the TV title every week now. Then he said he could call out anyone he wanted, and so he's calling out Bully Ray. Now, the whole concept of Open Fight Night, as Hogan said, was that you could call anyone out, and they would have to fight you. So Devon calls out Bully Ray. Bully Ray comes out and says, I don't want to fight you. And he goes to leave. Open Fight Night. Lifespan, 0 segments.
Well, he was forced to fight.
Devon...
He just didn't understand the rules because Hogan explained them so poorly.
Well, he was only forced because Devon had to go get him. So Devon went and got him, threw him in the ring. They had a match. It was pretty good, actually. Which should not be surprising. And they went back and forth. Ray got busted open on his eyebrow. And then Devon won with a spine buster that looked like it sucked. This was fine.
My big question is, why is the Impact Zone so goddamn hot for television and so horrible for pay-per-views?
I do not have an answer.
They were hot for this match.
Yeah.
And by the way, I need to know more about Open Fight Night. So, why weren't people coming out like at every moment to challenge people? Why did nobody challenge Bobby Roode? Why did no one challenge? I don't know. I still don't quite fully grasp the concept. Like, is it, are you booked for the show, and if you happen to be put on the sheet backstage, you get to issue an open challenge, or it's still confusing to me, this Open Fight Night deal. It shouldn't be. But go on.
Austin Aries cut a promo. I won't lie. I missed it. It was short. Ric Flair then cut a promo. He called Eric Bischoff, whose name is no longer bleeped.
That's right. They spent the entire show last week bleeping Eric Bischoff's name because he's no longer allowed to use that name. Now, apparently, just in the wrestling business. But when it was first explained, it was he couldn't use it anywhere. So that's been thrown out the window. But now this week, they didn't bleep his name at all.
Yeah. So
although they did bleep his Twitter handle, I noticed.
So
probably because he's no-selling everything on his Twitter.
Flair said he's going to have a party for Bischoff tonight. He said he'd been partying for 40 years. He had not slept since he was 20. That's what he said.
I kind of believe that.
I suspect he has slept less between the ages of 20 and whatever he is now than anyone else. Daniels and Kazarian went up to Angle backstage. They started laughing about AJ, and he didn't think it was funny. He told them not to interfere in his matches anymore. Out to the ring comes Jeremy Borash. It's time to do an internet angle. He starts talking about Bischoff, calls him a prick, says that he made a lot of inside references about drunk Facebooking or drunk tweeting or something. No one in the crowd knew or cared.
Well, let's be fair here. I felt that he explained enough that even if you didn't know what was going on, you would still understand the gist of it. Which is that everyone hates Eric Bischoff and he wants to kick his ass. With that said, there were way too many references to stuff on the internet and Facebook and that sort of thing. Yeah, I got it, and I'm sure everyone listening to this show got it, but we're talking about 1.5 million people. I would bet $100 that of those 1.5 million people, at least 1.2 million of them had absolutely no idea what he was talking about in terms of Facebooking and the internet. But again, Borash at least explained enough reasons to hate Eric Bischoff that I did not hate this segment. Now, with all that said, this segment would have been 100 times better if instead of spending all the time doing internet angles between Borash and Bischoff, they had actually done angles on television.
Yeah.
I believe they did a total of 1.
Or even if one of the announcers had simply said, you know, viewer, a few weeks back, Eric Bischoff got drunk and went on the internet and slammed Jeremy Borash.
Sure.
Takes 6 seconds. So, Borash called it Eric, cut a promo on him about how he was leaving. As he is talking, Eric starts to talk, and this just distracts Borash, which allows Bully Ray to sneak into the ring like a ninja and punched Borash in the nuts.
Now, my question was, if, for example, it is true that, as Jeremy Borash said, everyone hates Eric Bischoff, everyone was standing around right behind the curtain, waiting to be called to the ring, for example.
Yeah.
And when Bully Ray snuck out, why didn't anyone come and save Borash? Why didn't they save Borash when Bully kicked him in the nuts? Why didn't they save Borash when Bischoff pinned him? No one saved Borash! Poor bugger.
So, a ref came down. Eric pinned him. Then he played bongos on his head. That was the segment. Ken Anderson.
On one more thing on that segment. I still am trying to figure out why Eric Bischoff is still on the show 2 weeks after losing a Loser Leaves Town match. I can understand that, like, you're doing a going-away party for him, but if I were Dixie Carter, for example, you can throw all the damn parties you want, but Bischoff's not allowed on the show. Here he was on the show, and he just came out as he pleased. He came out and beat up Borash, and he came out and he did this, and he came out and did that. I mean, obviously, it played it in the angle. At the end, you had to have him there to throw him into your little outhouse or whatever, but still, shouldn't this have been done, like, last week? Why did they wait a week to get rid of Eric Bischoff? I just was not down with this whole Eric Bischoff thing.
It was not good. But it was better than Mr. Anderson. They did, well, actually, it wasn't even serious. They did one promo backstage with Anderson where they put a graphic at the bottom saying, "Remembering Eric Bischoff." So Anderson starts talking about politics and not just wrestling locker room politics, actual real-world politics. And he says he doesn't like Eric because Eric is anti-oppressive government. Which would mean Anderson then must be pro-oppression.
Sure, he's an asshole.
If I understood this correctly.
This was a segment
Jesus.
that I give a thumbs up to because it was so stupid. It was so funny. It was hilariously stupid.
This was bad.
What in the hell was he talking about?
I have no idea.
What in the hell was he talking about?
I don't know. He called him a douchebag. That term I understood.
This was funny.
Mexican America comes out to the ring. They were not among the tag teams Hogan has listed as possible challengers. This made them upset. They said they could beat any man, or they said they could beat any team or any man. At which point the camera cuts stage to the babyface locker room where, as you mentioned, everyone is waiting to be called out. And standing there in the babyface locker room, hanging out with the other babyfaces, is Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Did I miss...
No, you did not miss his babyface turn.
Did I miss a month of shows?
Nope.
Why is he a good guy now?
Well, you know.
He came down to the ring.
Why not?
He came down to the ring. It turned out to be Angle versus Anarchia. Kurt beat him in like a minute, hit a big German suplex, put him in the ankle lock, and that was that. Then it was time for the Gut Check Challenge. Gut Check Challenge was a rookie named Alex Silva. They explained
Could
that...
have sworn he was a Bellator fighter.
Sounds like it. They explained that what this is they're going to take indie geeks, and I really wish they had just used that term. They were going to take indie geeks and let them tell their story, then they would have a match, and then they would have a chance to earn a contract. So, yes, it was Alex Silva. He talked about how hard his father had to work so he could afford to train for wrestling. Then his father tragically passed away. Talked about winning titles in OVW, which they never explained what this stood for. They assumed all Impact fans know what Ohio Valley is. And then Al Snow talked about him for a while, talked about how tough he was.
Well, it would have made no difference if you spelled out OVW.
Yeah, I don't know. So, then Silva came out. He came out with Al Snow. Al Snow explained that he was the lead judge for Gut Check. And he explained this concept. I felt like he explained this concept like 3 times in a row. He just kept saying the same points. So, it was Robbie E. versus Alex Silva. Silva looked okay. A little too much like he was following a script, but it was fine. And then
Boy, you're being nice to this match.
Robbie E. pinned him with a DDT. There was one point where they set up for something and suddenly cut to the crowd shot for like 3 seconds.
Alex Silva. I don't know who it was that mentioned. Maybe it was Todd. Somebody mentioned the first gut check challenge should be like with Generico. You know? Started off with a bang.
Yeah.
Great match. Great talent. They started with Alex Silva. God bless the guy. Maybe he's a lot better than this. But even Taz is like, dude's nervous. It's going way too fast. That ain't even the half of it. This guy moved at 1,000,000,000 billion miles an hour. And he was like a guy in his first match where he had to go as fast as he could. There was no time to take a breath, either for him, his opponent, or the audience. Just bam, 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 bam. And not in a good way. Sometimes guys move really fast, like Austin Aries, but they do it right. This was doing it wrong. And he just, I don't know. I don't think this guy is going to get a contract.
Well,
maybe he will in the future.
They put up they want you to talk about this on Twitter under the hashtag #GutCheck. So I went on Twitter to see what people are saying about this. You have one guy here. I'm just quoting. They can get some retarded WWE stuff trending, but no awesome stuff like gut check and at Silva which apparently is Alex Silva, followed by I think Twitter is rigged.
Oh yeah?
That's what he says. We have from the ultimate Mark. He's in all caps. He's not ready, brother.
And that's from the ultimate Mark.
Yeah. We have... I can't find them now. There were some funny ones here. Everyone's campaigning to get their favorite indie geek on here. Son of a bitch.
Wow, Vinny.
This failed miserably.
You have just killed the show.
Train wrecked.
How about you move on and I'll find it?
Maybe that would work better.
Yes.
All right, try that. Fuck. So. Oh, God. No. All right.
Homie, you're killing me here.
Hulk Hogan had a meeting. I would much rather just read Twitter silently to myself than talk about this show. Hulk Hogan had a meeting. There were 4 teams in his office. These teams were Daniels and Kazarian, Jeff Hardy and Mr. Anderson, the Motor City Machine Guns, and Eric Young and ODB. Mm-hmm. So Hogan says one of them is going to get a title match. He doesn't know who, and he wants them to plead their case. So
now keep in mind, this is not like your average wrestling segment where they do one continuous shot with a cut here or there.
No, this is, yes, many, this is like a 2-camera sitcom.
This was produced exactly like a television show, like a comedy.
That's the wrong, this is a tragedy.
This was a comedy.
So, yeah. So Daniels goes first. He explains that the Machine Guns had a title match at Lockdown, and they lost, and you don't want to reward failure. He said Hardy and Anderson didn't get along, and only one of Eric Young and ODB was a man.
Well, it's a fact.
These are solid points, actually. So everyone just kept talking about what was going on, and Hogan said eventually he said that he listened to all their cases. This went off like 5 minutes. Just crap. Hogan finally said the Machine Guns were out because they had lost at Lockdown, and he was not sure that Saban's knee was okay. Which, if that's the way Hogan feels, why did he waste everyone's time by having them there in this meeting in the first place?
I don't know. The highlight was the chin scratching. The chin scratching.
Yeah.
And the thoughtful thinking was the highlight. And Chris Daniels actually had a...
Chris Daniels' promo was actually pretty good.
Especially when you... Well, we'll get to it. But suffice to say, in this particular segment, Chris Daniels had by far the best argument for him and his partner getting a chance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Out came Brooke Tessmacher. If you thought that Alex Silva was nervous for his match, Brooke was way, way, way more nervous for this promo. this promo had to have a long crowd shot to edit something out.
Yeah.
So she called out Gail. Gail came out for a match.
She did a lot more than, well, yeah, she called out Gail. This was not a good promo.
This was a bad promo.
It would have been very easy for her to just come out and go, Gail, I kicked your ass once. I want to do it again. Get out here. Instead, she had to do a long explanation. And normally, let's be fair, I am all in favor of people giving long explanations. Not necessarily long, but at least explain the situation. She did pin the champion in a tag team match last week. But this got stretched out way too long. She had to talk about how the whole wrestling world was talking about her win over Gail.
Not just wrestling world, social media.
Well, she started with the wrestling world, and that was preposterous enough. Then she started talking about how it was all over social media, and it was like, who cares? Then she just went on and on and on and on and on, and finally Gail came out. This was too much for someone who can't cut a promo. Let's just put it that way.
Yes. Also, the match was too much for someone who can't wrestle. It was not the worst thing I ever saw.
It was all right.
It went way too long, by which I mean almost 4 minutes. So, the finish was Gail missed a drop kick, landed flat on her back, and then Tessmacher pinned her with a move. That was that. Quick promo with Daniels and Kazarian. They noted AJ was not there tonight. They said he was a coward, and they ordered him to show up next week or they would reveal their secret. Al Snow was talking with Alex Silva backstage. Bobby Roode walked up, talked about how hard it was for him to get a shot on TV, kicked Silva in the nuts, and walked away. And boy, they just killed the gut check concept on the show. Brought a geek out. He had a bad match. He lost. He got made to look like a geek backstage.
Let's see.
Can't wait for the next one. I can't wait for the next one.
I'll do the gut check since you fucked it up so royally.
Oh, come on now.
I think Alex wad good, but made mistakes during the match. Sorry, no. That was a horrible tweet. Give Alex Silva a contract and put him in the X title hunt. Give Alex Silva a contract. He's a young kid that has a lot of potential. X division or even heavyweight someday. If you gave him more time and not make if a jobber, he should get on.
That specifically is what I was looking for.
Alex needs more training, but I'm sure he'll get a contract either way. No on Alex Silva. No. I usually hate Bobby Roode, but the gut check to that kid was priceless. Thought Silva was good, would like to have seen him against a better wrestler. Robbie made him look bad. Oh, really, fool?
Really?
Needs more training. His in-ring was sloppy. Alex Silva was quick, but exhausted way too much energy. Aggression was high, but didn't really grab my attention. That's a good answer there, Anthony. I would have to say no on Alex Silva. He used up way too much energy and burned out in the end. ... This guy actually tweeted that twice. It was a different guy.
He's very passionate.
Yeah. And then a bunch of guys tweeting who should get a chance, as you noted. Then there's this fella. You should give Alex Silver a contract. He can, Inouye, get better. I don't even know what that word means. I-N-O-Y.
I believe he was trying to type only and horribly botched it. But I love this. I love that's the justification for a contract. He can only get better.
He can Inouye get better.
This man can not get any worse. Give him money.
There are better indie talent than Alex Silva. Well, that's a fact as well. Silva seemed erratic. Maybe it was butterflies. All right.
So Hogan met with the last three teams. To recap, it's Daniels and Kazarian, Hardy and Anderson, and Eric Young and ODB. I should add, by the way, in the prior segment, there was one good line in there that I overlooked. When Eric Young was pleading his team's case for a title shot, one of his arguments was that Hogan would get to spend a night with ODB. And as Eric said this, ODB just nodded. She was fine with this plan.
Well, she's been reading TMZ.
I guess, well, maybe she has. So, in your, I'm doing this with the official report on the front page of The Observer, which, like everything else, I assume was written by Todd Martin. And he says, Young and ODB were eliminated for reasons I could not understand. Now, that's intriguing to me because I watched this segment and it was very clear.
Really? Because I actually had absolutely no idea what was going on.
Eric Young came on to Hulk Hogan at the hotel. And for this reason, Hulk Hogan was dismissing him from the title shot.
I did not know that.
That is what happened.
Huh.
I am not making that up. So it was down to two teams. Hogan still could not make up his mind. And so he told them both to go to the ring.
Hogan's clearly thought this open fight night
He's the
concept
worst
out.
GM I've ever seen.
Worse than Teddy Long?
Yes.
Wow.
He's had 4 hours to pick a challenger and he can't do it. He's had all day. He's had a week. Garrett cut a quick promo saying Impact would be better without Eric Bischoff. We had Joseph Park Esquire walking up to Bully Ray.
The big meeting at last.
The big meeting. Bully Ray refused to answer any questions. Joe Park. Abyss. Silly me. Joe Park finally said, if you hear anything about my brother, please give me a call. And he attempted to give Bully Ray a card, and Bully Ray ignored it and walked away, and Joe Park laughed.
By the way, Joe Park has alerted the world on Twitter that he's got his eye on Bully.
Good to hear. So Hogan came out, and there was two teams, and here's where I don't know what happened. He picked Hardy and Anderson to get a title shot. I don't know why. So it was Samoa Joe and Magnus against Jeff Hardy and Mr. Anderson, and this was actually a very fun match. Because Jeff Hardy is an awesome babyface in peril, and the one thing Anderson does do good is usually his comebacks. So this was fine. Fine match. And the finish was actually creative, and it made sense in the long-term story. Joe caught Anderson in a choke. Hardy tried to get into the ring and save him from the outside. But Magnus, lying on the floor, grabbed Hardy's feet, so Hardy could not get into the ring, and Anderson was forced to tap out. However, from Anderson's point of view, all he saw was Hardy just not getting in the ring. So he thought Hardy had abandoned him and left him high and dry. So they start bickering each other, and I think, okay, this makes sense and is creative. I'm fine with this. And then, at the same time, out come Kaz and Daniels. They attack Joe and Magnus, and 10 seconds later, they go to commercial.
Impact.
It is always going to be Impact. The most oxymoronic name ever. Nothing makes an impact because it's all forgotten. And then we had the main event party. I guarantee you that every party Ric Flair has thrown in his life was better than this one.
With that said, this was a retirement, or not a retirement, a going away. I don't even know what it was. A loser leaves town party for Eric Bischoff. And the outhouse, I didn't need the outhouse. It's the same horrible WWE comedy I've had to see way too many times in my life. The idea I always thought behind Impact was it's not WWE. And that was straight out of the Let's Make Vince McMahon Laugh playbook.
Yeah.
Excluding that, I enjoyed this because I thought Ric Flair was hilarious. Ric Flair is always awesome. You can give Ric Flair any job, and he's going to make it entertaining. I thought Ric Flair was great. I thought Bully was funny.
What about Ric Flair was great here?
His delivery of everything.
I thought it was all right.
If you would have given anybody else this, it would have been horrible. But they gave it to Ric Flair, and he did a great job.
The only part where I thought Ric Flair was funny, he's trying to talk about the great things Eric's done, and the crowd is chanting the goodbye song, and Ric Flair stops and says, "This is why I hate wrestling fans."
Yes.
That part was funny.
I liked when they were singing the goodbye song, and Bully Ray, there was a poster of Eric Bischoff, and Bully Ray covered the poster's ears.
Yeah.
Before Eric came out.
So they bring Eric out, they put him in a throne. Yes, a throne. And they're all explaining to him how unfair it is and how much they're going to miss him. Meanwhile, Eric is doing fake crying like he couldn't give a shit. Killing the angle. And yes, then they put him in an outhouse. And it's one of those moments where you become very embarrassed and you really, really hope nobody sees you watching this.
And then they had to cut to They actually, you want to know the one good thing about the Outhouse?
Yes.
Was,
well, no, but
I'll tell you. Because as soon as showing off the air, they cut to MMA Uncensored Live, and that one bald-headed dingbat that hosts the show, I would guess, since it's on Spike, he had to watch the final moments of Impact, and it threw him off his game. That entertained me. That guy is horrible at his job. God bless the guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy.
we should talk about that first segment.
I believe it was Dan Cox, or whatever the hell's that fighter's name? He looks just like my buddy Dan.
Nate Quarry.
Nate Quarry.
He does look like Dan.
Nate Quarry. I believe after the first show, Nate Quarry went on Twitter or something, and he just buried this guy. Just said he was nothing but a fan who was hosting a television show. And I was like, yep, that's what he is. And then apparently Mike Straka, God bless him, unless I misheard, I believe that he said that Frank Mir was the best pound-for-pound heavyweight fighter in the world.
I believe that's what he said, too.
I nearly lost control of my bladder when I heard that. And not in a good way. Anyway. They said we're going to talk about Overeem later! It's like, you fuckers.
First they had to talk about Rashad and Bones.
Yeah. Which the bald
guy thought was a waste.
He
thought it was boring.
Boring. Threw his money away.
He said he was throwing his money on the set and thought this was less of a waste of money than watching that fight.
Ellie was wrong. I was like, what were you expecting out of the fight? You know? A competitive battle? Anyway.
Actually, Nate Quarry did have a great point where he said, you take two guys who hate each other and you get a fight like that where they're afraid to lose, where you get two guys who love each other and they'll just go in there and bang.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. So anyway, everybody, MMA Uncensored Live, not a fan. But Impact was Impact. Open Fight Night was at least something different. If they only do it once a month, maybe it'll end up being something that people look forward to every 4 weeks. But hopefully sometime within the next 4 weeks, they can smarten up Hulk Hogan and explain to him exactly what this concept is, and then work out the kinks as well. Because it came off very, very clunky on television.
I would say amateurish.
Amateurish, yes.